After a long day of work, Diem and CEO Toan find solace in each other's arms, exchanging warm embraces and whispered words of encouragement that wash away their exhaustion. Amid the comfort, a shared longing ignites, the desire to have a child, a dream that binds their hearts closer than ever. They imagine the future, Diem in the delivery room, Toan by her side, and the first cry of their newborn filling the air with pure joy. Join us as we follow this heartfelt journey of love, hope, and family. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to experience every magical moment. The office lights had long gone out, and the city outside buzzed with the restless hum of traffic and neon glow. Yet inside the apartment, a different rhythm pulsed, one softer, slower, more intimate. Diem pushed open the door with a quiet sigh, her body weighed down by the demands of the day. Deadlines, endless meetings, and countless responsibilities had drained her, but the instant her eyes caught sight of Toan, all that heaviness began to dissolve like mist under the morning sun. He stood in the living room, jacket draped carelessly over the sofa, tie loosened, yet still carrying that aura of calm authority that followed him even beyond the walls of his corporate empire. For others, Toan was the CEO, the man of decisions and strategies. But for Diem, in this tender moment, he was simply her husband, the one place she could fall without fear. Without a word, he closed the distance between them. His steps were steady, his gaze gentle, as though he had been waiting the entire evening just for this moment. Diem barely had time to drop her bag before his arms wrapped around her, drawing her close against his chest. The warmth of his embrace enveloped her like a shield, melting away the fatigue that had clung to her since dawn. She rested her cheek against him, listening to the steady beat of his heart, a rhythm that grounded her, reminded her that despite the chaos of their lives, here, in this embrace, was where she truly belonged. "Long day?" he whispered, his voice low, vibrating against her ear. She gave a small nod, her eyes closing, allowing herself to be lost in the comfort of his arms. Toan's hand gently stroked her hair, and though no grand words were exchanged, his simple touch spoke volumes. It was in these quiet gestures, a brush of his hand, a kiss on her temple, a steady presence, that Diem found the strength to endure the battles outside. In that silent exchange, they reminded each other why they endured so much. Their dreams, their sacrifices, their long hours at work, all of it made sense when balanced against moments like these. Toan pulled back just slightly, his thumb grazing her cheek, tilting her face so he could look into her eyes. The corners of his lips curved into a tired yet tender smile. "We made it through another day," he murmured. It wasn't just an observation, but a promise that no matter how hard the world outside pressed against them, together they would always find a way through. Diem's heart swelled. She saw in his eyes not only love, but also admiration, a recognition of her own strength. She answered with a faint smile of her own, whispering back, "With you, I always do." And as their words hung in the air, fragile yet powerful, the fatigue of the day no longer mattered. For what was exhaustion when weighed against the serenity of being wrapped in the arms of the one you love? That evening, time seemed to slow. Their embrace wasn't simply about comfort, it was a reminder of the life they were building together, brick by brick, moment by moment. And though they both carried the burdens of their professional worlds, in this quiet pause, they found the courage to keep moving forward, not just as individuals, but as two souls intertwined, holding on to each other against the storm. As the evening deepened, their embrace slowly loosened, yet the invisible bond between them only grew stronger. Toan guided Diem to the couch, his hand never leaving hers, as if letting go would mean surrendering a piece of himself. They sat close, shoulders brushing, and for a long while neither spoke. Words felt unnecessary when their hearts were already speaking in silence. The city outside roared with its relentless case, but within their little haven, the world was still. It was in that stillness that a familiar desire rose between them, unspoken yet undeniable, a longing that had been quietly igniting in the depths of their souls. Diem turned slightly, her eyes searching his, and in that gaze, he saw it clearly: the hunger for something greater than themselves. Love had been their anchor, passion their fire, but now they yearned for the ultimate fruit of that union, a child. The thought of a baby, fragile and perfect, made her heart ache with a sweetness she could hardly put into words. Toan, sensing her unvoiced dream, squeezed her hand gently, his eyes reflecting the same flame. For years, he had built empires, conquered boardrooms, and mastered negotiations. Yet in that moment, his greatest ambition was not measured in contracts or profits, but in cradling new life born from their love. "Do you ever imagine it?" Diem finally whispered, her voice soft, almost trembling. "What it would be like if we had a child?" The vulnerability in her tone pierced through him, deeper than any confession. Toan leaned closer, his forehead brushing hers, his breath warm and steady. "Every day," he admitted, his voice heavy with sincerity. "I see you holding our baby. I hear laughter filling this home. It's the one dream I can't let go of." Her eyes shimmered, a mixture of hope and fear. She knew life was unpredictable, that no amount of planning could guarantee such a gift, yet in his words, she found courage. Diem rested her hand against his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart. It mirrored her own, restless and yearning. That shared rhythm, that shared hunger, wove a deeper intimacy than any embrace could offer. They began to paint pictures with their words, weaving dreams together as if sketching a future already written in their hearts. Toan described late nights where he would tiptoe through the halls, cradling their baby to sleep, humming softly so as not to wake Diem. Diem imagined mornings when she would place their child in his arms before work. The sight of the formidable CEO transformed into a tender father, making her chest swell with pride. Each vision layered upon the last, and soon their minds were filled with the laughter of a little one running through their home, the soft cries of midnight feedings, and the sweetness of lullabies sung in whispers. The fire of longing burned stronger with every shared word. Their fingers intertwined tighter, as if holding on could make the dream real. Toan kissed her knuckles with a reverence that made her breath catch, whispering, "We'll get there, Diem. Together. Our love deserves to grow." His certainty was like an anchor, steadying the fragile hope blooming inside her. The night grew quiet again, but it was not the silence of exhaustion. Instead, it was the silence of promise, of two souls aligning their deepest desires. In that moment, their love was no longer just about surviving the demands of life, but about creating life itself. It was a vow unspoken, yet deeply felt, that their story, already beautiful, was destined to become even more radiant when a child's first cry filled the air, binding them forever as not just husband and wife, but as father and a mother. The dreams they whispered that night did not remain just fragile hopes. They became a flame that guided them forward until one day it was no longer imagination but reality. Months later, the quiet glow of hospital lights painted the walls of a delivery room, and Toan stood by Diem's side, his hand gripping hers with a strength that was both desperate and tender. Sweat glistened on her brow, her breaths sharp and uneven, each contraction pulling her to the edge of pain and perseverance. Toan's world, once filled with board meetings, negotiations, and towering responsibilities, had narrowed to this single moment, to the trembling fingers of the woman he loved and the miracle they were about to welcome. "Breathe, my love," he murmured, his voice steady, though his own heart raced wildly in his chest. He kissed her knuckles again and again, whispering reassurances, pouring every ounce of courage he had into her through touch and words. Diem's eyes fluttered open between the waves of agony, and in them, Toan saw both exhaustion and unyielding strength. The same strength that had once carried her through life's trials was now carrying their child into the world. He brushed away a tear from her cheek, though he was unaware of the tears brimming in his own eyes. Then, an instant that stretched into eternity, it happened. A cry, fragile yet powerful, trembling yet fierce, filled the room. It was the sound of life itself, raw and unfiltered, the first voice of their child announcing existence. For a heartbeat, the entire world seemed to stop, as if holding its breath in reverence, before releasing in waves of emotion that neither Diem nor Toan could contain. Diem collapsed back against the bed, her body drained, her spirit overwhelmed, and tears streamed down her face in rivers of relief and joy. Toan felt his knees weaken, his chest tightened with emotions too vast for words. He turned, his gaze falling upon the tiny bundle now cradled gently by the nurse. Wrapped in soft blankets, a tuft of hair peeking from beneath the cap. Their child, their miracle, their dream made flesh. When the baby was placed into Diem's arms, her trembling hands gathered the little one against her chest, and she let out a sob that broke and healed Toan in the same instant. He leaned in, his arm encircling them both, his lips pressing against her damp forehead. "We did it," he whispered, though in truth, it was she who had done the impossible, she who had born their love into being. Yet Diem shook her head faintly, her smile radiant through tears. "No, Toan, we did this together." Toan gazed down at the infant's tiny face, eyes still closed, mouth opening in soft whimpers. And something shifted deep inside him, something permanent, irreversible. He had faced countless victories, achieved milestones that others only dreamed of, yet nothing compared to this fragile life in his wife's arms. In that moment, he was no longer just the CEO, no longer just a husband. He was a father. And with that realization came a fierce, unshakable vow to protect, to guide, to love with every breath for the rest of his days. The delivery room, with its sterile walls and clinical lights, had become the holiest sanctuary they had ever stepped into. Within it, their love had taken form, their whispered hopes had transformed into a heartbeat, their longing into a voice that now echoed in their souls. As Diem and Toan looked at their child, tears mingling with smiles, they understood that life had given them their most precious gift. And though the world outside would continue to demand, to test, to challenge them, nothing could ever overshadow the memory of that first cry, the sound that marked the birth not only of their child, but of themselves as parents, bound forever, by a love deeper than they had ever imagined.
Hello, xin chào tất cả các khán giả của kênh Lý Tu Diem Review. Vậy là trong tập phim ngày hôm nay với ước muốn khát khao là sớm có thì Toàn với Diễm sau một ngày làm việc căng thẳng vất vả mệt mỏi đã ngồi lại với nhau và tưởng tượng về quá trình khi mà Diễm có thai đến khi Diễm đi sinh và khi con của Diễm và Toàn cất tiếng khóc chào đời thì Diễm và Toàn và gia đình sẽ hạnh phúc như thế nào. Khoảnh khắc đó là Diễm không thể nào quên, khiến họ hạnh phúc từ nỗi khắp nơi cả đất nước. Liệu rằng mong ước đơn giản đó của hai người có thể trở thành hiện thực một cách sớm nhất hay không? Tất cả sẽ được hé lộ ở các tập tiếp theo, sẽ được phát sóng theo hàng ngày trên kênh Lý Tu Diem Review. Các bạn nếu thấy video hôm nay hay, hấp dẫn, mới lạ thì hãy cho mình xin một nút like, một nút chia sẻ và để lại bình luận ở dưới video nhé. Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại vào tập sau. Bye bye!